Have you ever gotten news so shocking it literally made you feel weak in the knees? I mean, really think about that. What if I told you that certain words, delivered in just the right way, can actually knock a person flat on the ground? And no, we're not talking about persuasion or getting into some heated argument. We're talking about pure information triggering a full-on biological collapse.
Yeah, this is a real thing. We're talking about a system-wide crash. The official medical term for it is vasovagal syncope, but a better way to think about it is a total physiological override. The brain gets hit with a cognitive blow so powerful that it basically slams the emergency shut-off switch for the whole body. This isn't just feeling a little faint, it's a complete involuntary shutdown.
And that brings us to the core question of all this, right? How is it even possible? How can something as abstract as information, just words, bypass our conscious mind and cause a direct, physical event? How does a simple sentence literally become a physical force?
Okay, so to really get our heads around this, we're going to break it all down. We'll look at the biological override switch that we all have, then the actual architecture of how to, well, do it. We'll explore how it bypasses all our mental defenses, the role of the person delivering the information, and finally, we have to ask, is this a tool or is it a weapon?
All right, first up, we've got to understand the core concept. This is not about winning an argument. It's about something much deeper. It's about finding and, exploiting a kind of biological backdoor in the human operating system, a direct link between information and our most basic automatic physical functions.
So to hack into this system, you first need a target. And in this framework, that target has a name. It's called a load-bearing wall. This is a core foundational belief that props up a person's entire reality. It's that one thing, the one thing they absolutely cannot afford to discover is a lie.
Next, you need the weapon itself. This is the payload, and it's just a single, concise piece of information that's been perfectly calibrated to shatter that load-bearing wall. It's not an opinion, it's not a debate, it's a statement of fact that just instantly demolishes the target's foundational reality.
And this is the result. This is the semantic shockwave. It's that exact moment the cognitive blow, the payload smashing into the wall, triggers that full-body physiological shutdown we talked about. It is the literal instant that information becomes a physical event.
So here's the crucial part, how this actually works. The payload doesn't get debated by your rational mind. It doesn't even stop there. It completely bypasses conscious thought and directly hits the autonomic nervous system through something called the vagus nerve. That's the body's main control panel for all the stuff we don't think about. Your conscious defenses, they are completely, 100% irrelevant.
So, if this is a real biological mechanism, can it be triggered deliberately? Well, the answer is yes. But to engineer what's known as an at-will strike, you have to precisely control three key variables. These are the three stages of engineering this response. You have to map the target's psychological foundation, then guide them into just the right receptive state, and then deliver the payload with perfect timing. And listen, if even one of these steps fails, the whole strike fails. The information just gets processed as, really bad news.
Step one is basically a form of intellectual reconnaissance. It's not about what a person says is important to them. Not at all. It's about discovering their true load-bearing wall, that one singular truth that their entire sense of reality actually depends on.
Okay, step two is about creating a receptive state. You can't just drop this kind of payload when the target is defensive or skeptical. Their critical filters, you can call them their shields, they have to be lowered so the information can get past their normal cognitive processing.
And finally, the delivery itself.
It has to be what's called a pattern interrupt, a sudden reality-breaking strike that hits at the absolute perfect moment of vulnerability. The timing here is absolutely critical to overwhelm and crash their mental processing before they even have a chance to put up a defense.
But hold on, what about a target who's already guarded? Someone who's hostile, whose shields are fully up. Is it still possible to land a strike then? Well, the surprising answer is yes, by bypassing their psychological defenses entirely. This opens up a totally different vector of attack. See, some payloads don't target beliefs or opinions, which we can argue with and defend. Instead, they hit our fundamental connection to reality itself by striking the limbic system, that ancient primal part of our brain that's all about emotion and survival.
This table really breaks it down. Think of it as a hierarchy of our defenses. Our surface walls, like political opinions, heavily guarded.
But our primal walls, things related to the survival of our children, our own life, or a sudden total loss of freedom, those are biologically unguarded. No amount of skepticism can stop a payload aimed at a primal wall.
And this is why people physically fall to the ground. It's called postural collapse. See, our brain is constantly running this little prediction engine to anticipate what's coming next and just to keep us upright. A primal payload completely shatters that engine. It has no script, no next step for this new, unimaginable reality, and the body's motor control just turns off.
But there's one final, critical piece to this whole puzzle: the person who's actually delivering the information. It turns out their identity and how much authority they seem to have, well, it's not just important, it's one of the most critical variables in the entire equation.
See, the physical override only happens at the precise microsecond the brain accepts the payload as an absolute, unchangeable fact. It's that instant that denial becomes literally impossible, and it's the authority of the deliverer that slams that door on denial shut.
As you can see here, the source of the information determines the force of the blow. News from an unreliable source, it gets cushioned by doubt. But when it comes from an absolute source, think a doctor with a lab report or a police officer with a badge, it becomes a kinetic strike. The information has so much mass that it vaporizes any shield instantly.
So we've just outlined a really powerful and, frankly, a pretty dangerous psychological mechanism. This knowledge, it isn't neutral. It has huge implications, and it forces us to ask a really difficult question. How should it be used?
And this really illustrates the two sides of the coin here. In a therapeutic setting, causing a controlled collapse of a harmful belief system could be the start of a profound breakthrough. But in the wrong hands, it is a form of non-physical assault that can cause lasting neurological damage, real scar tissue.
Now here's what's truly fascinating. The very same biological override can be triggered by overwhelmingly positive news. So instead of a payload like, "he didn't make it," just imagine hearing, "it's benign." The load-bearing wall isn't one of safety, but one of fear. And instead of a cortisol crash, the brain is flooded with dopamine and endorphins, leading to a physical surrender, not to grief, but to overwhelming joy.
And this leaves us with a final, kind of unsettling question. Is this mechanism just a cautionary tale about the deep vulnerabilities that are hardwired into our biology? Or could understanding this architecture of the strike actually be a key to intentionally triggering moments of profound, life-altering breakthrough and bliss? The power is exactly the same. The only difference is the intent.